Okay. Yeah. So I was telling about the context of this chapter, fourth chapter. In the end of the third chapter, uh, first of all, it's always important to understand any scriptural statements, scriptural verses in the context where they're appearing, in the overall context of the scripture itself, and the specific context of the chapter where they're coming in, and the specific context of the verse they're coming in. What is verses before that? What is the verses after that? Like that. So it's important. That's why we always hear from our teachers about the context. So Bhagavad scripture itself has 18 chapters, we know. So at the end of the towards the end of the third chapter, Arjuna asked one important question, which is very common for most people in the world, which they say, I know what is the right thing to do. I know this is my goal. I set this goal also. But then I don't know, I don't do the right thing still. So why is that? He asked, Arjuna asked the Krishna. And Krishna tells nicely, authoritatively. The Vedic scriptures are so authoritative and directly to the point principle, not the detail level that will mask the original principle. So he said it's only because of the lust. Because of the lust is the enemy. And because of that, you're not to, many of us are not able to strive for the goal. Even though we know what is the right thing to do, we don't do the right thing. This topic itself can be discussed a lot, but the context of today's verse is not that. So, but I'll mentioning briefly. So that's the end of the third chapter. Then uh, Krishna gives a solution also. So how to conquer that lust also? So he tells by transcendental knowledge, by uh, deliberate spiritual intelligence. Through that, by developing spiritual intelligence, which is obtained through transcendental knowledge, we can uh, conquer the lust basically. So now Krishna gave answer about transcendental knowledge. So now in this chapter, Krishna is giving the transcendental knowledge. So that way, Arjuna has a path to become successful. So a good teacher is not only good at pointing out the faults in the audience or the student, but he also gives a path for the student to strive towards to get out of that fault also. So Krishna gives the Krishna starts to describe the transcendental knowledge. What is this transcendental knowledge? In the last few verses of this chapter, we heard, first of all, we already heard in the second chapter, knowledge about who we are like that. In this particular chapter, the transcendental knowledge given is the knowledge about Krishna himself is telling, and how he's different from this other living entities, ordinary living entities. He's telling that aspect. And then he's also telling the way of perfection of life also through this transcendental knowledge, specifically glorifying bhakti also, indirectly though, because the full bhakti chapters come from 7th chapter onwards. 7th to 12th are fully focused on bhakti, but here also there's description about bhakti and primarily the transcendental nature of Krishna. So this verse also, Divyam is the key word here, the transcendental nature of Krishna. So that means, see how Prabhupada translated Divyam means transcendental. So it's a beautiful verse. So we'll go through a few of these now. So first we'll look at it verse itself in a simple meaning so that we have the essence picture first, and then we'll dive into details. So what is he saying? That we need to, if we know, that means if we understand the transcendental nature, not just the nature, but the transcendental nature of my first Krishna, Krishna's appearance and Krishna's activities. Basically, if we can understand Krishna's appearance and Krishna's activities by seeing the transcendental nature of them, not just like not seeing them like ordinary, but seeing them as transcendental. We'll discuss what transcendental means here. Then, when we leave our body, because it's already established we're spirit, soul in the last chapters. So when we leave this body, instead of taking again another birth in another body, where is a human body, animal body, bird body, aquatic body, doesn't matter, insect body, instead of taking another material body in this world, we'll go back to the spiritual world. That is what Krishna is discussing. Krishna is directly telling us. So there is many verses in this Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is directly telling, and Krishna is telling my appearance like that. So that itself is a simple clue for an intelligent person that Krishna, Supreme Lord, is a person. That is a one point that Prabhupada also drives in the purport. So now, so that's the simple meaning of the verse. Now, how do we understand this Krishna, and why do we need to understand it? Why do we need to get out of this material world? Why do we need to go to eternal abode, spiritual abode? That is the focus we can start with first. So generally, solution is required when there's a problem. Remember, overall, this chapter, Transcendental Knowledge Solution, is a solution Krishna is offering to conquer the lust. That's the overall. But this particular verse is about Krishna is saying we need to get out of this material world and go to eternal abode, spiritual abode. Why is he saying that? Because these are also discussed in last chapters, several chapters. You might have heard this already, but I will mention it again. Basically, in the material world, the world we are living in, there are certain problems that are always there, whether we want it or not. What are those problems? Birth, death, old age, and disease. So in the earlier sessions, these were discussed, why these are problems like that. These are the problems, no one can avoid them. So that is one important point to know. And even if somebody doesn't want it, they come. That is one. Now there are three kinds of distress also that were discussed in previous sessions. What are those? Distress caused by my own body and my own mind. That is number one. And miseries caused by other living entities. Other living entities means can be other people, other animals, mosquitoes, insects, bacteria, virus, like that. So misery is caused by my own body and my own mind. Misery is caused by other living entities, and misery is caused by natural disturbances that are caused by demigods, like earthquakes, cyclones, too much cold, too much hot, like that kind of things, too much rain. So these are called threefold miseries of the material world. So in material world, whether we want it or not, so is subject to these miseries that we all need to go through. Whether it is some of them will go through today, some of them are next year, some of them after 10 years, some of them next minute, like that. But all of us is problems. That is the nature of the material world. That's why if you remember the verses from the second chapter, Matras Pasasta Kaunteya, Sitoshna Sukadukana, Dukada, in that verse, Krishna says, it's natural, like seasons come and go, like winter season comes, summer season comes, rainy season comes, like seasons come and go. Similarly, happiness comes, distress comes in the material world. So you need to learn to tolerate. So now, so that does not mean Krishna is saying ignore them. Doesn't matter, just don't do anything about it. What he's saying is don't focus on them only. Don't focus on solving this problem. If I focus on how to not die, I will not solve it. Because that's the problem that's there in material world. Not die currently in this material body. So he's saying don't focus on that. Focus on the higher aspect. Focus on the spiritual level, spiritual consciousness. So which is what is the eternal benefit for me? That is what we need to think through. So for example, when children children have the tendency to focus on short-term pleasure. Is what I need to do right now. Meaning, I want chocolate right now. I don't want it tomorrow. I don't want it next week. I don't want it next month. That's called prayas. That means short-term benefit only they see. Parents educate children as they're growing up to learn to see the longer-term benefits, which is called shreyas in Sanskrit. Meaning, so basically, let me stop the sharing. So, yeah. So basically, one of the parenting we also do is see the long-term benefit. Start to see the long-term benefit in this life, and then slowly they can mature to long-term benefit beyond this life also. So that's what we're trying to teach children also. And as also we need to learn that from Bhagavad. So basically, what do we tell children? If you, let us say they want to don't go to school, but they want to play all day. We tell them, go to school, Baba. When you go to school, you can get a good job later on. You can enjoy life. Like that, we give them aspiration to look forward to and why they need to do certain things. And this reasoning is also important for parent to give to child. Otherwise, just do it. As I say, that will not work for more than few years. So then they understand, oh, if I need to go to school so that I can get a good job. So then I can get some money in this world. Then I can live a good life. Like that, they'll start and then start to uh, postpone the temporary happiness for the later happiness, like that. Now, similarly, when we have an understanding of the knowledge that we are a spirit soul and we are not just this material body, and this material world has these problems we discussed, 4 problems of life: birth, death, old age, disease, and the 3 miseries of life we discussed: adhyatmik klesha, adibhautik klesha, adhyavik klesha. These are Sanskrit words for what we discussed, the 3 kinds of miseries. These are there here. Now, we also hear from Bhagavad Gita that we are actually longing for love. We want to love and we want to be loved. That is the deepest longing we all have in our heart. So, only thing is, we don't know whom to repose those things. That means, who is the object of that love? We do not know, many of us currently. So, we pose that love on our children, on our wife, our husband, friends, relatives, hungry people, poor people, like that. But the way, best object where we repose our love, or the deepest longing we have to love and be loved, is towards our Supreme Lord Krishna. That's one of the understanding Bhagavad Gita gives us. Apart from understanding that we are a spirit soul, it's also giving the understanding that the object of our deep longing is Lord Krishna. Because only when we love him, he has the capacity to reciprocate back to us. Whereas in the material world, I love somebody, they love me back for few days, few months, few years, few decades. After that, they say, you didn't do anything for me. Or they don't have capacity to reciprocate so much. But Krishna has the capacity to reciprocate with everyone, not just me. That's why when we love him, then he loves us fully. And then we'll be fully satisfied, fully happy, and we can be eternally happy. And this is a position we are striving towards. And to strive towards that, we can only love somebody when we know him, when you know the person. So our scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam share about who is Supreme Lord. How does he deal with friends? How does he deal with his family members? How does he deal with the parents? All that it gives. And it gives in very nice detail what are the kind of sweet loving exchanges he does. Apart from explaining the greatness of the Supreme Lord also. So both aspects are important. So basically, when we understand about the Lord, when we understand about the spiritual abode, then we have the motivation to strive towards something as a purpose of our life. So in this context, remember the reason this discussion came up is the verse is talking about we need to go from here to the eternal abode. That's what the verse is talking about. So that eternal abode is also described in Bhagavad Gita. It's a place where there's no sunlight, there's no time is also there. And there's always eternal pleasure. And it's a spiritual atmosphere where there's no temporary things. That means there's no happiness and distress. Here in the material world, I get happiness for some time and then distress is looking in the corner somewhere in 1 week, 1 month, one year. Distress will keep coming. But in spiritual, it's a life of eternal happiness in relation with Krishna. So that is why Krishna is describing, if we aspire towards that, if we go there, then we can be permanently happy, not just temporarily happy for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, or 1 decade. So now that is why it's important to aspire to go to spiritual abode. Now, what do we do there? That's also described in the scriptures. When we go there, we engage in loving relationship with Krishna. Remember, our deepest longing is to love and to be loved by Krishna. So we'll engage in that loving relationship with Krishna and they will be very satisfied. Why? Because that is our spiritual nature. We are part and parcel of Krishna. That we already heard in previous chapters. We are part and parcel of Krishna and we are the same spiritual nature like Krishna. So we're compatible, basically nicely compatible with each other. That is why when we love Krishna, then we'll experience spiritual satisfaction and complete love for him. And we can feel fully satisfied with his love like that. So now that is what he's telling. That is what effect, that is the result. You can go at the end of life from here to there. But then somebody might argue, what is this? I thought this is the only life I have. After this life, everything is done. That's the common functional atheistic philosophy that we live in the world. Many people subscribe to the philosophy that all we have is just one life. Enjoy, do whatever you want. After this life, everything is done, finished. That's the philosophy some people have. But that's not the correct philosophy. From scriptures, we are understanding clearly. Remember, in the beginning introductory sessions, many of you might have attended. We heard about the principles of why bad things happen to good people, why good things happen to bad people, why small children suffer, why babies in the womb suffer. All those things we heard, right? That's all describing. And also we heard about the principles of reincarnation, and we saw the practical evidences of reincarnation in this life also. Through all this, we are understanding that there's a life beyond this life, number one. And we are not this body, we are a spirit soul. So that means from here, we'll go to the next life. And that also is described in Bhagavad Gita. The word used is transmigration. That means the spirit soul, at the end of this life, when the death comes, spirit soul, along with the subtle body, the mind, intelligence, and false ego, he leaves this body and goes to another new body. That means taking birth in another species. It can be human species, or it can be any other species also. We cannot be sure that we'll get only human form of life unless we do devotional service. By this time, you should have heard that principle already. So that way, this transmigration of from one body to another keeps on going for a long time. If you don't know the solution, how to get out of this? That's why Krishna is giving them another solution here. That don't just go around this body to this body, this body to this body in the middle world, but go to eternal happiness place in spiritual abode. How? By understanding my nature of my birth and my activities, Krishna is saying. What nature? Transcendental nature of my birth and activities. So that's the overall why Krishna is saying, and then what do we need to do, which is to understand transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance, right? Appearance and activities. Now remember, the word used is appearance, not birth. So many of us, we say happy birthday, somebody is born like that. But for Krishna, it's not, that word is not used, appearance is used. So the common analogy our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada gives is that of analogy of sun. Sun is always there. Right now it's the evening time for us now. So sun is still there in the sky. Sun is not died or anything. Sun is still there. Only thing is not manifesting before our vision right now in the evening time here, but is manifesting in India or some other place in Asia where they can see sun right now. So, but for us, sun is not manifest now, but sun is still there. Okay. Similarly, Supreme Lord is always there, eternally there. Sun may not be there eternally, but sun is also there eternally. But Supreme Lord is already there eternally. Now, sometimes he manifests before us and does certain pastimes for people on this world or another world or another universe like that. That's why is only manifesting, is not coming into being right now, first time like that. That is why it's called as appearance. Now, somebody may argue, I'm also spirit soul. When I'm appearing, I'm also appearing. I'm not born because I'm also there eternally, always, like Krishna. So the difference is that's also discussed in the previous verses. Even second chapter also is discussed, right? The difference, there is a difference between, huge difference between ordinary living entity like us and Supreme Lord Krishna. What are some of the differences we heard already? Some of the differences we heard are, I know only about this body, number one. Number two, I'm forced to take a body against my will even. But Krishna is not forced to take a body against any will. He comes his own spiritual body, number one. Number two, he comes by his own will. He's not forced by the laws of nature to come here. So that's another beautiful thing. So now that means nobody can control Krishna because he's the supreme controller. He's the absolute truth from whom everything came. So there's nothing beyond him. If there is something beyond him, he's not absolute truth. He's not the God. He's not the highest God. But Supreme Lord means he's the highest. Nobody beyond him. That means when he comes here, nobody can influence him. You probably heard about the influence of three modes of material nature also in the third chapter. So the modes of material nature, like mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance, they can influence me, but not Krishna. Krishna is above them. Krishna is the controller of them. That's why he's not affected by them. So this kind of knowledge about Krishna's nature, how he has a spiritual body, how when he takes birth, when he appears rather on this planet, is not forced by laws of nature to appear, and he comes with his own spiritual body, and he comes by his own will. That understanding, for example, in the Krishna book that Srila Prabhupada has, which is based on Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, is described how when Krishna appeared to his parents Devaki and Vasudeva, he came with hair also, and he came with clothes, he came with ornaments. Do we see any living entity being born in the hospital or at home with clothes, with ornaments, with hair, full-grown hair? No. So Krishna, that itself proves Krishna is not ordinary living entity. He is a Supreme Lord. In fact, Krishna showed his 400 form to his parents also, that to prove that he is Supreme Lord. That's the nature of his appearance, for example. That means when we understand this transcendental nature of this appearance, what is transcendental word? Transcendental means, remember, we already know about three modes of my nature: mode of ignorance, mode of passion, mode of goodness. Above these three modes is called transcendental. That means somebody who's not affected by these three modes is called transcendental. Whereas ordinary most of us are affected by either of these three modes at any point of time. We were discussing in one of the sessions long time ago. But transcendental means somebody who is beyond these modes. So the transcendental nature of appearance we can understand like this, by understanding this from Guru, from Sadhu. Sadhu means great teachers, and then Shastra means scriptures, like that. We can understand that. That's the transcendental nature of his appearance. Okay. Now, so for discovering transcendental nature appearance, we talked about how he appeared in the circumstances, how he appeared in this world, like that we discussed. We discussed about spiritual body, we discussed, and we discussed about how he can appear in different planets also. Even same time also he can appear. Not like us. If I'm in the home, I cannot be outside. Not like that. He can appear any place. And then, of course, his transcendental features are there, which is omniscience. He knows everything. I know something in my body only, about my body. Whereas Krishna knows about all of our bodies at the same time, for example. And then omnipotence. Krishna can do anything if he wants to. So that's another thing. So that's the omnipotence nature. Like that, so many things we can discuss about Krishna's appearance and qualities also, how they are transcendental. Now, another aspect of the transcendental activities also Krishna said, not only the appearance, but also activities we need to know. So Bhagavad Gita is a philosophy, scripture that is making us understand few things nicely. One is, we already discussed about our nature, that we are a spirit soul, we are eternal. That means there is a life beyond this life. That means this life is not, I'm not focused on only living this life. I'm actually need to focus on my eternal life in spiritual world. To get there, what do you need to do right now? That is what is my mission, to find out and do that, so that I can reach that goal. Like that, that is one aspect it teaches. And then it teaches about the transcendental nature of Krishna in two ways. One is, Krishna is supremely great. That means how he is greatly omnipotent. For example, in Bhagavad Gita later chapters, 11th chapter, we'll see Krishna displays his universal form. That is clear manifestation of greatness. Nobody can deny his greatness with that universal form. Similarly, in Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna shows his universal form, his whole universe within his mouth, When he opens his mouth like this for Mother Yashoda can see the whole universe within his mouth. Not only Supreme Lord can do these things. Supreme Lord can lift Govardhan Giri. Some of you may not know this pastime, but basically, when there was a severe rain coming, I'm making it very, very concise for the context only. One of the pastimes, maybe I'll describe a little bit more because this touches the next point I'm going to tell also. Basically, Krishna has wonderful devotees in a place called Vrindavan, and he enjoys loving exchanges with his devotees. So one time, there's a demigod called Indra, who is a rain god, who they did not worship him because Krishna wanted them to worship a hill called Govardhan instead. So because Krishna diverted them from worshipping rain god became angry, forgetting his position as a subordinate to Krishna. So he gave lots and lots of rain. And then Krishna, being a loving father, loving associate of all his devotees, he lifted the Govardhan Giri, the hill, on his left hand. So this is not mythology, these are facts. So he lifted the Govardhan hill, and then he asked all his friends and relatives and loving associates to come under the Govardhan Giri. And that way he gave protection to them in the danger. So that way they did not get any harm at all, number one. That manifesting the greatness of Krishna. Now the same Leela, same pastime manifests the sweetness of Krishna. Basically, after they all got together with Krishna, what did they do? They were so happy seeing Krishna every day for 7 whole days and nights. And they did not feel any hunger, thirst, no bodily needs they felt. They're exchanging love with Krishna. They're talking to Krishna. They're seeing Krishna and they're happy like that. So, and in fact, it's described parents are exchanging love with Krishna in one way, Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, and his friends are exchanging love with Krishna in one way, and his lovers are exchanging loving exchange with Krishna in one way, like that. So when we hear these pastimes in detail, we'll develop, wow, Krishna is so loving to his friends. Krishna is so loving to everybody. There in spiritual world. I understand that is what happens in spiritual world every day. So I want to go there. I want to be with that Krishna. He's so attractive. Not only is great, but he's also so attractive and loving also. And I heard that Krishna always loves us, no matter what we do. Such a loving master. I want to love him. I want to go with him. And I want to engage in his loving dealings with him. Like that, we are meant to develop that love for Krishna through understanding the greatness and the sweetness aspects of Krishna. So that is this one activity I described, one pastime I've described about Krishna. Like this, when we hear about the pastimes that Krishna did with so many other associates in the spiritual world also, then that's how we can know about Krishna more. We can know about his qualities, how he's so kind, how he's so loving. Like that, when we know, that is what Krishna is describing about knowing my nature, knowing my birth, and knowing my appearance and activities also. So that will invoke the sweet love for him. And when we develop that attraction can pull us. That attraction can be the right motivation for us instead of avoiding the negative miseries in the material world. But the attraction, I want to be with Krishna. Because remember, we all are longing for a deep love. I want to love him. I want to be loved by someone. So when we are when we are taking Krishna as our ultimate shelter, not just as please Krishna, please ensure that my job continues. Please give me food every day. Not only that level, not only just seeing Krishna as an order supplier, but Krishna is seeing as the ultimate shelter for us. Krishna as our loving associate, loving master. Then we do that. That positive attraction will pull us to do the right practices that can achieve us the goal. What are the right practices? The right practices are spiritual practices beyond the bodily activities, beyond the mental speculation, but the spiritual activities. That's what Prabhupada is referring to in the purport also. Those spiritual activities, we commonly call them as bhakti yoga. That means bhakti is devotional service. Yoga is one form of yoga, one form of connecting with Krishna, our Supreme Lord. So then we have the motivation now to practice the Bhakti Yoga. Then we'll find out what is Bhakti Yoga, how can I do Bhakti Yoga, who can guide me in Bhakti Yoga. Same way, let us say I want to go to gym for the first time in my life. I want to do weight training. I go to gym and ask for who's the expert here who can coach me, who's my mentor, who can be my mentor in lifting weights properly with the proper form, proper method. Like that, we inquire who can be my mentor, who can be my spiritual master, who can be my teacher, who can I learn from. What do I need to do? What is the first thing I need to do? What is the next thing I need to do? What is the next thing I need to aspire to go to in spiritual life? Like that, we'll find out and then do them. So that's the other thing. So basically, we discussed so many things. I'll pause here for any comments or questions before I have a lot of things to share, but I want to pause here in case something is not clear the way I described it. Please ask any questions you have. Okay, good. Then we can go and continue, move on to the other more topics on the same topic. So we discussed about a general, what is the problem we are in material world. We need to be, what is the solution? What is the final destination? We need to go to spiritual world. And one solution Krishna is giving is understanding the knowledge of his appearance and activities being transcendental. Then we can go to spiritual world. We discussed that. We discussed the essence of the verse now. Now, uh, let me see. And then we also discuss, I'll discuss a few more aspects and then pause. For example, Krishna is actually the ultimate hero. Like in, let us say, when we see movie or when we are living life and when we get attracted to somebody as a hero for us, so we normally get attracted because they're great in one particular way, where they have a lot of knowledge, lot of money, lot of strength, lot of beauty, like that, right? But Krishna has all of these things in full. One thing. So when Krishna is doing these activities, remember we're talking about transcendental nature of his activities. When he's doing these activities or pastimes, we call it, then he's expressing simultaneously the greatness aspect by his great feats that he's doing, great wonders he's doing, great amazing things he's doing, but he's also conquering our heart with the loving exchanges he's performing with his devotees, like we discussed. So these are considered like external purposes and internal purposes. You might have remembered in the last session, the last two verses talk about external purposes, which is paritranaya sadhuna, that means to protect the saintly persons, and vinashaya diskutam, to annihilate the demons, and then dharma samstapana, to establish dharma, like that he described, right? So that's the external purposes. Internal purpose is actually to attract all of us towards him, to conquer our heart, so that we can be motivated to be in his relationship with him. So that's the internal purpose Krishna is doing in this whenever he comes to this planet or this universe, like that. Now there is another purpose behind these scriptures and instructions. One thing is that he's actually coming and is doing something to save the at particular moment. For example, he helped Arjuna in the war to win the war. That is the contextual purpose is coming in. But there's a perennial purpose is also there behind that. What is that? After the war is over, after Krishna left back to his planet, Arjuna was despondent. We hear this in another scripture called Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto. So Arjuna was despondent, but he remembered the instructions that Krishna gave him. So such remembrance, he got relieved, he got situated back from anxiety to a wonderful state of consciousness, so that he also went back to spiritual world, to Krishna. Similarly, all these pastimes have the secondary purpose, or the another purpose, not secondary purpose, another purpose, which perennial purpose, which is to inspire us to attract to Krishna, to surrender to Krishna, to practice Bhakti Yoga, like that. Now, there's so many things. I'll mention some key highlights. One more thing is Krishna is always omnipotent. That means he can do anything anytime he wants. But to make his pastimes fascinating, attractive, and thrilling, suspenseful for us, sometimes he hides his divinity. That means he conceals his divinity. So that means, for example, he's fighting with a demon. Suddenly, demon kicks him in his chest. But nobody can do that, really. If the Supreme Lord is full, he has all the power he can do. He can dodge the kick, right? But he takes the kick. So then it makes it even more interesting. Actually, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu is describing, apparently, I don't know much about Superman story myself, but what he's sharing, I'm repeating back to you. Apparently, Superman, it seems, character was created, and they made him more powerful. Finally, they made him so powerful that nothing can do anything to him. Popularity was increasing, but the moment nothing can defeat him, there's no vulnerability in Superman. The popularity was decreasing, it seems, for the show. Then they introduced another character, it seems, to show and weakness in some weakness in Superman also. That way, the enemies will try to work with that weakness, that vulnerability is there, right? Then the popularity will increasing, it seems, because that adds some suspense. Oh, what will Superman do? Oh, they're attacking his weakness now. Like that, it seems. Similarly, he's describing how Krishna sometimes he lets the demons kick him, for example. See, it appears demons are winning for time being when he's fighting with them. But then he wins finally. Like that, Krishna makes his pastimes also wonderful for us to enjoy. And that the good thing is, Krishna's pastimes give us happiness while we are here, and also helping us to go back to him also, to achieve the perfection of the life. Then now another aspect of the pastimes of Krishna are that Krishna shows his greatness. Oh, I know everything. I'm in everyone's heart. I'm in every atom. When we hear that, it inspires civility in us, doing right thing. I cannot think that, oh, I will go in this corner and do some bad thing. No, Krishna is always watching. There's witnesses everywhere. So it inspires certain severe civility or certain good manners in us while we are living in this world. At the same time, he manifests the sweetness in his loving exchanges. So it will spiritualize humanity. That means it wants us to do spirituality so that we can go towards that loving pastimes with Krishna at some point of time. Now, yeah. And Bhavita also, like we discussed earlier, is giving the understanding of ourself as a spirit soul, understanding that this life is not all in all. There's a life beyond this. There's an eternal life that I can aspire for, not just be satisfied with this life only, like that. And also it gives the understanding of the God, which we talked about. Generally, common understanding is what? Two things. One is, if I don't get something that I want, then I go to God. Or if I don't want something that I don't want, then I go to God. So he'll help me so that I don't get that thing that I don't want and I get things I want. So like order supplier, or God as a fulfiller of my desires. That's how we're looking at God, many of us. But Bhagavad Gita inspires us to look beyond that. Like I described, is the like object of our love, because our deep longing is to love him and to be loved by him. So to look at him like that as ultimate shelter. So Bhagavad Gita is giving, showing Supreme Lord as all attractive one, who is the fulfillment of our desires. Not just who is fulfilling our desires, but all our desires get fulfilled when we achieve the relationship with Krishna. Like that also. Now it's 7:52. We have a couple of more points. So now Krishna, yeah, good. Then when we have the right understanding about Krishna, why he's coming, like for example, when we understand Krishna is so great, he's omnipotent, he knows everything, he can do anything. When we hear that, that's such a powerful thing, right? And he's the source of everything. All this is given in Bhagavad Gita. When we know all those things, but still he's coming here just to inspire people like me to love him, to go back to him, to be happy permanently. When we understand that he's coming just for me, for people like me, all of us, then it actually evokes loving affection in us. And then actually we want to practice bhakti more sincerely, more seriously, so that we can reciprocate with Krishna's loving mercy towards us, Krishna's uh, merciful nature, Krishna's merciful help towards us, so that we can go back to him and stay happy eternally ever after. So I'll pause there. We can cover many things, but I hope I did not confuse anyone. Kindly ask any clarifications if anything did not make sense from what you understand already, so I can clarify. Yeah, this is your opportunity to share any comments, something you understood, or some questions you have to clarify also. Thank you so much. Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Let me know if you have any comments or questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Just I'm just reading the purport, and I read the verse 6 also. Is this in this verse they are pointing out that this could be our last birth before going to the Krishna Dham, or eternal abode? I mean, they are pointing out this way, hey, you understand my transcendental nature, as if you understand that, that's it, but not as a as a empiric philosopher or mundane scholar, so even if I'm let's say like somebody is the empiric, like a scholar, they still by experiences, by their own experiences, they understand the transcendental nature of the God. What is wrong there? I mean, I think it is okay, right?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'm thankful to you for bringing this point, because I wanted to cover two more things that I missed. So I'm very happy that you brought up this point, Surendra Prabhu. Thanks for scrutinizingly studying the purport. That is a very good quality. Yeah. So two things I'll mention. One is what is the difference between empirical philosophers and as devotees? The difference. So the 2 points Prabhupada is making in the purport, very broadly I'm saying. One is that anyone who is following the empirical philosophy, they can understand by knowledge. Oh, Krishna is great. Krishna is relating with them like this. They can understand that much only. But they cannot get into the mood of devotion and doing something with devotion like that. For example, empirical philosophers generally don't believe in a personal form of the Lord. They believe in only Brahma Jyoti form of the Lord. They aspire to merge into Brahma Jyoti. That's why Prabhupada is discussing that point in the purport. That means they think Supreme Lord has no form, no qualities, no pastimes. How attractive is that? Nothing. So their only motivation to go to Brahma Jyoti is, I don't like death, I don't like disease, I don't like miseries. That's why I want to go there. That's their only negative motivation, basically, avoiding the negative. But for devotees, they have the positive also. So this is where the next point I wanted to share will come into picture, which is when we understand this information like that, right? When Krishna is saying, when you know my transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, he's not just saying, okay, I got this. Krishna was born with clothes. That means he's transcendentally appeared. Krishna engages with different things. He can do anything. He doesn't have a body like us. The check mark. That's not the only thing that Krishna is discussing. Remember, I described about when we understand the greatness of Krishna and when we understand the transcendental nature of Krishna, especially his loving exchanges with devotees, then that will inspire us to practice bhakti yogi. So that means it's not just stop there. I know I will perfect my life, not stop there. The meaning of knowledge is that we're acting on that knowledge. That means when I know Krishna is supreme, Krishna can give me the love, real love. Then what do you need to do? I need to act on that. How to get that love? How to act in that love? Like that. That is through bhakti yoga. So essentially, after understanding this knowledge, somebody will practice bhakti yoga, and through that they attain perfection. It can be this lifetime, or this can be next lifetime, or it can be 10 lifetimes. That is not quantifying one lifetime in this verse, but is describing that is the key to go back to. So we can develop that. So when we read scriptures, when we're hearing, we can observe Krishna's greatness and Krishna's sweetness, so that we can let our heart attract to Krishna. This is another way of saying we need to let Krishna, not only get Krishna in our life by practicing bhakti, but we need to let Krishna bring us into his life. How do we do that? By practicing bhakti nicely, like that. So the connection with the sixth verse is that he's saying that I appear in my transcendental form. That is the connection with the sixth verse that is being referred in the purport. Because this verse is saying understand the transcendental form and activities, right? That's the purpose is not focusing much on the transcendental form here. More on the transcendental form in the previous sixth verse is focused already. Here you're focusing on activities. So I hope that helps, Prabhu. If you have,
Yeah, thank you so much for explaining so nicely. Yeah.
welcome.
Basically, like, we need to engage ourselves more in the devotional service. And like, it's not just you understand, okay, yes, I agree, like, as you said, like, check mark. I
Yeah,
understand you are transcendental. I understand that, like, you have various forms, but we need to keep continuously engage ourselves in the devotional. And devotional, like, it's like a various sadhana, like, when we go for the sadhana ladders, various ladders all the way up. Yeah. Okay.
wonderful, Prabhu. Yeah.
Thank you
Actually,
so
that
much.
reminds me another
Thanks a
point
lot.
also. Yeah, exactly. And with that motivation, with that purpose is also important,
Right.
because when we're doing sadhana with that purpose, then we'll get purified. When we'll
Yeah.
make great progress.
Yes.
If you just do it mechanically, we don't progress so
We
much.
don't progress. Yeah. Makes sense, Prabhu. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Anyone else has any comments or questions?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very nice class.
Welcome, Ate. Hare Krishna. Anything you learned today that is nice for you to practice in your bhakti, or anything you have clarification you want to ask? You're welcome.
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna,
Thank you
Brandon.
for the
Yeah.
message. Good to see you. You gave an example early at the beginning of class that you talked about how children want they want things right now, and so one thing that parents do, we try to tell them that if you do this thing, you can grow up and make money, make a good job, get a good job, and then be happy later on. And so I was thinking about the idea of longevity, and I was wondering if because we are spiritual beings, if there's a way to teach our children to understand longevity without using something as material as money or a good job or something like that, or a good life here. Is there anything that we've found that children can recognize about our spirituality? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is actually, that is also described when we train children. We incorporate spiritual elements right from the childhood itself.
Mm-hmm.
So the way to do that is the same thing is asked in a different way also. Basically, we need to see why we need to get money, why we need to get job, why we need to live. When we have spiritual knowledge, is not tangential to our life. So our ultimate, remember I told you the Gita gives us the knowledge that is not just living this life, but we are looking forward to the eternal life.
Mm-hmm.
So we can give that principle already to children, that we are here temporarily in this material world. Our real position is to be happy, always happy with Krishna in spiritual world. We can give that understanding as early as we can, that one. And then that way we can dovetail everything with that understanding of that aspiration.
Right.
So now, what does this mean? First understanding they got is their soul. Second understanding they got is we are aspiring to that, not just living this life. Then third understanding is we need to live this life in harmony so that I can go back to this goal. I can achieve this goal. That we need to give them. So how do we give that? That means in order to practice, let us say I don't have a job for 1 year. I'll be thinking only about job. I cannot focus on my chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Oh, should I send a resume to this company? Should I send a resume to this company?
Yeah.
I'm not so advanced to not think at my level.
Mm-hmm.
So there are advanced souls who can live even that scenario. They can live also nicely.
Yeah.
They can chant nicely. They can do devotion service wonderfully. Even more actually. Tivra Bhakti they call it. So the way I reconcile that for myself is that I'm doing these things because in material world, to live with minimal comforts, I need certain things to do in material life, which is to go to a job regularly, to make sure I meet the objectives of the boss. I can work all day, but don't do what boss needs, no use.
Right.
Right? Like that, I need to follow certain things. But why am I doing that? So that I can practice my spiritual life peacefully. That is what we need to, we can teach children, this principle. As long as we have this paradigm, usually when we're teaching children, when we are clear, then it's easy to go to them. Words will come easily. Words is not a problem. And they learn more by seeing us what we're doing than what we're saying actually. So when for example, when there's a decision coming, I make a Janmashtami festival, the biggest festival of the year is coming. Am I taking a leave from office to go to the festival? Or I'm saying my office is the most important thing. On one side, I'm saying Krishna is the most important thing in my life. They can sense that clearly. They can understand. Or when let us say when my car got an accident, am I thinking about Krishna? Or I'm thinking about why this guy hit me? Why this guy hit me? They can sense those things. Real simple interactions every day they can observe. So many things I can see from my children actually. They can observe. So that's why this paradigm we can clear basically. For spiritual life, our main focus is spiritual life. Towards that, we're achieving certain material goals only towards that only. And these achieving material goals should never come in the way of our spiritual path. That's what we need to tell them. As long as it's not coming in spiritual path, we're okay. But if it is, let us say by pursuing for my promotion, I have to chant less number of rounds, then I don't want to pursue promotion like that.
Yeah.
Like that, we need to teach them basically.
I got you.
Yeah, I don't know if that helps.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I've got some good notes here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, most welcome, Brandon. Yeah. Thank you for attending regularly also, Brandon.
Of course.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions?
I just want to share, this is a very good point, Prabhuji raised, how we can communicate our children. So the way, my kids do the same thing, like instant gratification, right? So once, I just tell them, before that, karma yoga, let's talk about that. How they're going to reach, how they're going to use this transcendental knowledge, how are they going to attain that knowledge? Forget about the using. So so it's like a package, we cannot pick one verse. However, one verse itself is in the whole, philosophy, we can say. But we need to so the way I try to communicate them, the whole process, why you need to study, so that you can understand better, right? How you're going to control your mind and all, along with this Bhagavad Gita, one should have the capability or knowledge to understand that, to decipher that, to understand that, to grasp that. And once they start, why they need to study, my daughter asked, Daddy, I'm going to do the bhakti, I need not to study. I said, no, if you don't study, how are you going to understand that? How are you going to spread that, the message of Krishna to all over the world? You need to live, you need to survive that, right? So those are the way, you need to do that. I just do. And whenever I read some shloka, I just pass them on, especially karma yoga perspective, that you need to, how to relate in your real life, and then you can reach to the next step. These are the step-by-step process. So, but that's a very good question, how we can, educate our kids.
Yeah.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, everything is contributing towards spiritual growth. That's what we need to share with children.
Ultimate goal is that, but reach to ultimate goal, we have various stepping stones. So we need to go through that.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely bhakti, for going to bhakti, we don't need to go to the other paths. We can directly go to bhakti, like we're all practicing now.
Right.
Yeah, but definitely a good angle you described also. Yeah. And then other thing to share with children when their time comes is this: we are a whole being. That means we need to be physically healthy, mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, and spiritually healthy. This package helps at least my children a lot.
Mhm.
So always they need to understand life is not only spiritually healthy, life is not only physically healthy, only mentally healthy, not only emotionally healthy. All these four things together need to be there with the primary goal of spiritual health. Because I think we talked about in one of the sessions, probably I don't remember now, in this forum or some other forum. If I'm physically, emotionally, or mentally not healthy, I cannot practice spiritual life.
Yep.
So that means I need to do healthy. I need to be fit body wise. I need to feel mind wise. I need to have emotional bondings so I can feel emotionally strong also, and simultaneously spiritually also. But if I do all these three things, but spiritually I'm not doing anything, then ultimately I've lost the boat also. Remember, the goal is gone. That's why we need to focus on these three healths, but in the context of the spiritual focus. That means how much they're contributing towards this. If they're not favorable to this, then I don't do them like that. So that's the other thing that helps for my children, especially.
And what were the four that you? I usually do three, so
Yeah.
you added one for me. I like it. What is?
Physical,
Mhm.
mental, emotional,
Ah,
and spiritual.
that's true. So true. So
Yeah.
true.
It's the roundabout. Then there no questions about why should I go to gym? Why should I go for walking or running? Why should I chant? Why should I learn this new skill? Nothing will come because it's a whole package. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, so we can end here. Thank you for a nice discussion. Let's end here. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Let's offer our obeisance to devotees. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kapasindhu bevacha paditanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much for your association today. It's a wonderful verse. I hope you'll meditate on this verse and the meaning and apply in your life. Yeah. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Excellent.
Krishna
Thank you.
Prabhu.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.